14-term Congressman Peter King of New York announced today that he's retiring and won't seek re-election in 2020. The 75-year-old Republican saying he wants to spend more time with his family. King's suburban Long Island district is the kind of district the GOP has recently been struggling to hold. Even though it was carried by Trump, King won re-election by just 6 points last year, which is the closest race he has had since he was first elected back in 1992. Now, King is widely described in the press as a rare moderate Republican, but I don't think that really characterizes him accurately. He was one of the most notorious anti-Muslim bigots in all of Congress. He said there are, quote, too many mosques in this country. He led hearings on what he claimed was the, quote, radicalization of the American Muslim community and called for a nationwide surveillance program directed at Muslim Americans. King's departure is part of an amazing story that has played out before our eyes since Trump's election. He is the 20th House Republican to decline to seek re-election in 2020, which is part of a broader trend. Cook political report editor Dave Wasserman notes that when Trump took office in January 2017, there were 241 Republicans in the House. Since then, 101 have either been defeated, retired, otherwise left office, or are retiring in 2020. That's more than 40%. The Republicans who stay are mostly the Trump diehards. Like the party in general, the elected GOP is becoming Trumpier in every way. So what does that mean for 2020? To help answer that, I want to bring in two Democratic pollsters and strategists, Cornell Belcher and Margie O'Mara. Margie, this is an interesting district because Peter King's district, suburban Long Island, it went for Obama over Romney by 4 points, but it went big, swung big for Trump, +9 over Hillary Clinton. And then Peter King won by 6 points, but he had a contested race. What do you see here as the decision making of King, who is old enough that it's not crazy he's retiring?
Well, Obama won this district twice, too. So this is a district that has been on the map, as we say, for a while as one that, could be potentially a pickup opportunity for Democrats. And last time around, he had a strong candidate, a woman candidate, Eubia Gretchen Shirley, who had this incredible video as a mom of young kids. She had showed her young kids and talked about being a mom in her video. And she had this very contentious debate where Peter King got very testy with her. And it was the kind of race where, a lot of women in a lot of districts around the country won that race. She came up a little bit short, but it just highlighted, I think, the opportunity here for progressives and for Democrats to really make a real clear contrast.
Cornell, what I see here in the thinking of these folks are you're going to have to raise a lot of money. You're going to have to run a tough race. The sort of demographics on the ground in the Trump era makes it harder to win these places. And then you got to defend the president all the time, which I just feel like is a kind of I'm serious. It's just like, who wants it, honestly? And I think, you see 20 exoduses. I can understand the decision making.
Well, I don't see this story and what you're seeing with King and some other Republicans and them losing the suburbs disconnected from the story that you just ran about Jim Jordan. And where you do have, to your point, you have a Republican Party that's almost cultish now. A Republican Party where defending Donald Trump is the first and foremost priority. Defending him around things that a lot of these college-educated voters, especially these college-educated women in the suburbs, find indefensible. And so the suburbs have made a bargain with Republicans, moderate Republicans. You keep our taxes low and keep us safe, and we'll give you your votes.
Right.
That is beginning to sort of erode, especially with the Republican Party turned first and foremost to defending Trump, but also, Kristen, I think this is important too. There is a price to pay for such a narrow focus on rural issues and sort of the rural culture and supporting rural voters, because you did also begin to sort of turn off suburban voters. And I think nowhere is that bigger a problem for Republicans than what you see with the issue of guns and how that's turning in the suburbs versus how it's not turning in the rural areas.
Margie, it's also the case that if you're in a frontline seat as a Republican, you've got to sort of negotiate the fact that a lot of your voters probably have some frustrated feelings about the president, to be delicate at most. You have a sort of energized opposition that's going to raise money. But then if you're on the other side, right, you've also got to watch the primary flank. I thought this piece from the Texas Tribune about Kay Granger was fascinating. She's the most senior Republican woman in the U.S. House, but she's basically drawing she's drawing a primary challenger, and she's going to have to run, this contested race because she's sort of, I guess, insufficiently pro-Trump.
Well, I'm not sure if that was a part of the calculation for Peter King, but it is, I think, sometimes a calculation for Republicans in other districts. And, I think when you look at these retirements, you have obviously a lot more retirements on the Republican side than on the Democratic side. That gap is even larger if you're just looking at the most toss-up districts. And I think that what the next step is who is now running for those seats. And if a seat looks tough, then the folks who have always wanted to run for Congress are thinking maybe this is not my year. And so in a tough time where you have a lot of Republicans who are retiring because they have polling or they've decided it's tough for them, they're not necessarily going to be replaced by 3, 4, 5 different strong challengers or strong folks who run for that contested primary on the Republican side, like we saw in 2018 on the Democratic side, where we had lots of contested primaries because we had lots of Democrats in these, trying to challenge the Republicans who were, excited to run for office.
Margie makes a great point here, too, Cornell, about as we're watching this sort of transformation of the party, when you think about those 101 members, which is that when you think about, well, who's going to run for a Republican seat, for an open seat? Who's motivated? Who's going to be able to sort of electrify the grassroots on the Republican side? It's going to be a very pro-Trump Republican, like just unavoidably. That's going to be the kind of person who's going to want to run in this environment, who's going to have sort of a beat on an open Republican primary. If that's actually what you're facing, you're going to select for those kinds of candidates and then those kinds of legislators.
Well, and this is Chris, and I'm gonna reach, but I'm reaching very far. But this is where the chickens come home to roost around gerrymandering. Right, so you've gerrymandered these districts where oftentimes the only competition or the most competition you have is in the primary, and so you're going to get the most radicalized, sort of most far right sort of Trump Republican is going to probably win that primary. And in this age and time where the suburbs are particularly sort of college-educated white voters are beginning to sort of turn against these voters, I think it makes it a lot harder for them to, in fact, hold on and win these competitive seats. But the gerrymandering here does very much matter.
All right, Cornell Belcher and Margie O'Mara, thank you both. Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.